You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
Hey everybody, Maleficent is coming to theaters this Friday, and you know what that means?
We're probably going to be sleeping through this podcast.
No, it means we're going to stammer through it.
Shut up.
And this actually means another episode of Don't F With The Original.
With Nicholas, I'm the video correspondent for Idiomatic.
And I'm Dimitri, editor-in-chief of Idiomatic.com and movie critic. For those of you who don't know, Don't F With The Original is when, whenever there's a movie that's coming out that's part of a franchise, we review them one that started it all, and then use that review to gauge our expectations about the latest entry in the franchise. In this case, it's a little bit special because what we have here is Maleficent is sort of a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but from the bad guy's point of view.
Interesting.
It's sort of like what Wicked did for The Wizard of Oz, and they did that for Snow White as well a couple of times.
Okay.
So we figure, okay, well, the original, in that case, is Sleeping Beauty, definitely.
Of course.
But it's not like it's a sequel or a straight remake, you know? So it's a little bit of a different creature.
It is.
So Sleeping Beauty, did you like it? Just like right off the bat, so people know where we're coming from.
Oh yeah, I liked it.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a great movie. I really do think it's a great movie. All right. So synopsis.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So Sleeping Beauty. When she's born, when the little girl born, Aurora, the kingdom has a great celebration, and the three fairy godmothers come in to give her gifts. One gives her a gift of beauty. The other one a gift of song, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Maleficent shows up. She's really angry because she was not invited to the shindig. So she curses the baby, and she says when she on her 16th birthday, she's going to prick herself on a spindle and die. So to compensate for that, the third fairy godmother says, you know what, my gift is that she's not going to die. She's just going to fall asleep until her true love kisses her. And so to try and counteract that curse, the fairy godmothers have an idea of just go hide her and raise her in the woods until she's past 16, and then she'll be safe.
And then the fairy tale story goes exactly as you expect.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you said you liked it. What did you?
I liked it because I was actually expecting it to be just the story about the prince and Sleeping Beauty, and I was really like 20 minutes in, I was like, I'm tired of those fairy godmothers. Why can't we just focus on the two main characters? But then you realize the story is actually about the fairy godmothers, and all their actions they're doing to try and prevent Sleeping Beauty from, falling into that curse. And you start realizing that, that's actually pretty interesting. It's just, it's called Sleeping Beauty, and the movie's not even about her. The protagonists are the fairy godmothers, which I really liked.
That's a really very insightful comment. I think that's really a great observation. Something that I hadn't really noticed until you mentioned it, but it's true. Whose actions motivate the plot? The little fairies.
Yeah.
Who makes the horrible mistake that allows Maleficent to get the edge? The witches. Yeah. And at the end, who solves the problem? Okay, there's a little bit of help from the prince, but mostly the witches.
He's just a tool. He's really a tool.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but at the end of the day, it's really the witches who are not the witches, the fairies who are making those decisions. You're right. Yeah. I agree with you. And I think that's the right angle for this story in the sense that, okay, one of the things that we have to keep in mind about Sleeping Beauty is it's one of the three canonical Disney fairy tales. The first one being obviously Snow White, second Cinderella, third Sleeping Beauty. When we think of the Disney princesses, those are the three ones that have been there forever that we think about. And all the other ones we think about, but we think about them as being the modern ones.
Yeah.
And the thing with Sleeping Beauty and Snow White in particular is that it has been theorized very often, and with some historical proofs, that it stems from the same story, like in the oral tradition, and then got split off, and then when it actually got in print, it had deviated enough from one another that they were two different stories.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, at the origin, they're the same story, and you can see why. Yeah, you know, like you have like an evil woman who wants the young princess to die, and then lives in the woods for a while, and then she sleeps, and the Prince Charming kisses her and wakes her. Like, there's a lot of common elements.
That's
here.
pretty true.
Yeah. And so, if you're going to make a movie about a Sleeping Beauty, when one of your great classics at the time was Snow White, you got to find a way to make it different. You know,
That's true. Yeah.
and I think that was a great idea to add those three fairies and tell the story through their perspective, so that it becomes like how mystical creatures from the good side and the evil side sort of manipulate all of humanity to try to balance the scales in a way. It is a better story that way. I agree.
Yeah.
And what I like as well is that those three fairies have distinct personalities. Okay, they're all sort of children.
Yes. That's what makes them really fun, because,
Yeah.
you know, they're trying to raise that girl, acting like adults. No, they're just kids.
But they are three different kids. They're not one character separated in three. One of them, Flora, I think, is the bossy one.
Yeah.
Then there's the one who's sort of the sensitive one, which is the green one. And then you have the blue one, who's probably the more sensible one. She's probably the more intelligent one, the more responsible one of the three. But she keeps getting rejected because Flora is so bossy, she will not listen to her.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting dynamic here. And yes, for those who've seen the movie and going like, really, the blue one's the responsible one? I realize that's sort of like saying Donatello looks less like a turtle than the other ones, but...
That's a good point, yes. I can see. Wow.
But, you know, she is a little bit more sensible. There's some hints that they never show on screen, but, you know, the blue one's going like, yeah, you want to make a cake and make a dress. Like, neither of you have ever sewn anything or cooked anything. And you're like, when you think about that statement, you're going like, now hold on now. They've raised this kid for 16 years without magic.
Yeah.
If neither the pink one or the green one has ever cooked or sewed something, that means either they've been making Aurora cook and sew all her life,
Yeah.
or the blue one's been doing it.
I know.
And since they clearly care about Aurora, it seems like the blue one's been doing all the work.
Probably, yeah. Or they've been ordering takeout. I don't know. You know?
And Meriwether will often be the one to go like, no, what you're doing, it makes no sense. At the same time, she's the one pushing for magic, to use magic, so she's the one responsible for the major fuck-up, but, you know.
Well, you know, she was pushing for magic, but not like overusing, having like a war of color on the dress, you know.
Yes, but she participated in that
Yes.
war.
She was kind of getting no respect, so it was time for her to stand up.
No, but her resentment, you see it, like, her resentment why she starts that war of magic is not because she doesn't like pink, it's because she's just tired of Flora acting like she knows everything.
Yeah, exactly. And the dress looked better in blue anyway. I mean,
It kind of does, actually.
just
It really does.
And surprisingly, I mean, people keep talking about Prince Charming and everything. He's particularly bland in this one. He has almost no development. He's wandering around. He can't ride a horse for crap, apparently. But I think his horse has more personality than him, to be perfectly honest. I mean,
Well, critters often have more personalities than humans in Disney pictures, in fairness.
yeah, good point.
But I disagree with you.
Okay.
I actually disagree with you. When people praise the prince in Sleeping Beauty as opposed to the other two canonical Disney princess movies, it's because it's the only one where we actually get to know who he is.
Okay.
Like Snow White, Prince Charming shows up at the end, kisses her,
Yeah.
and she loves him because he's a prince.
Good point.
Cinderella, she meets him at a party, they have a nice magical ballroom night, and he's like, I'm gonna make her a princess. And she loves him because he's a what? He's a prince.
Okay.
In this one, neither of them wants to marry the prince or the princess, but they fall in love with each other, thinking, I'm cool with marrying a peasant. I don't care.
Yeah.
And he even stands up to his father, going like, I know you want me to marry a princess, but look, this is the 14th century. So apparently the story takes place in 1302, I'm guessing.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm gonna marry this peasant girl because that's the one I love. then he actually goes out to fight Maleficent, and of course he only succeeds because of the help of the fairies, because the story's about them.
Yeah.
But he does go out to do that, so you understand that he's a guy who's brave, he's a guy who's principled, he's a guy who can stand up to his own father, the king.
Yeah.
He's a real character. He's somebody that you can value aside from his princeness.
I know it's a movie, it's a limited time, but if they had been meeting often and often in the woods like that, and not just once, I would have been like a lot better, maybe a lot happier about the movie. But maybe just love at first sight for once. I'm happy that at least they talk. But if they, they're in the woods, they could meet a bunch of times.
Well, here's the thing about it: is a modern movie today would have made a montage. Like, he would have met her the first time in the woods, and then they would have had a montage of them meeting in the woods regularly, and then would have gotten the impression, so they know each other, they fall in love over a period of time.
Yeah.
But this was made before montages.
Really?
So there's a little bit of shorthand storytelling where it's like, oh, look, they meet once because that's what we have time to show. And people are just going to have to assume.
Yeah, okay. I'm really, am, changing my opinion here on the prince. Good guy.
Well, I think first of all, he's genuinely charming. I love the scene where he meets Aurora in the woods. Because I like both of them as actual characters. When she's singing about, like she's not singing, like, one day my prince will come. She's just singing, I was like, hey, like, how come birds get to talk to people? And I've lived with, like, these 3 old women all my life. I'm a little bit bored. Like, that's what she's actually singing about. Yeah. And that I can relate to already. And then when she actually meets him, first of all, there's a very cute thing with the animals pretending to be a prince while she dances with him, and him taking her place. And so you learn about him that he's a little bit cheeky, you know?
Yeah.
And her, like, I like her ambivalence in the way they animate her, like, 'cause she runs away a little bit from him and sort of hides from him because he is a stranger, and she's not unaware of stranger danger. Like, she's not a moron.
Has she ever seen a man in her life, as well, living in the woods like that? I was like, what is this?
But it's not like Snow White, who's like, oh, old lady, you want to give me an apple? I'll eat the apple. Like, here she's like, her body language communicates like, well, you look charming, and I'm desperate to meet people, but I'm also a little bit cautious, you know? So I like these characters. They come off intelligent just by the way they're animated. They come off like he's forthcoming. Like, she'll pull her hand away, and he'll, like, grab it again, and she'll pull it away and grab it again. It's kind of cute,
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I also like the bad guy, to be fair, compared to Snow White. Snow White had such the lame, oh, she's prettier than me. It is such a lame thing, as opposed to, you lack respect, you didn't invite me to this party. Well, you'll see, it's not about her being angry at Aurora. It's just, I'm evil, I'm going to teach you that, you don't mess with me. So I thought it was more interesting. It was less, a petty reason to be evil. It was petty, but still, it was like, I'm just generally evil, and not just, I'm jealous because you're pretty.
There's a larger theme that's interesting, because she represents the forces of evil, like, quite vocally. She says it, like, I represent the forces of evil. I represent evil. How dare you not invite me? And there's an interesting message about, like, evil is part of life, and it's going to be part of Aurora's life. How dare you not invite me there?
Interesting.
And she might not have done an evil curse if they had accepted that Aurora could have evil in her life. And she just would have been like, well, I give you the gift of slight vanity, or a little bit of pettiness, like something like that, or like, like clumsiness in front of men, like she like anything. Like, she might have been just be like, hey, sometimes your life is gonna suck, sister. Yeah. But they were like, no, Aurora's too good for evil to be in her life, and she's like, really? Excuse me? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, like, in terms of a grander theme of, like, in life there's both, maybe the idea is that the parents are paying a dear price for their own vanity, for thinking they're above evil. Basically
trying to, shield her from evil, and, there's nothing evil that's ever going to happen in your life, don't worry about this, and then all of a sudden, hey, no, evil happens. Yeah. All right. Even better.
Yeah, I like Maleficent as well. I think that you're right, like, she is one of the more interesting villains, which will make the upcoming quote-unquote remake really interesting. Yeah. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. Another thing I like about the movie, okay, this is a fairy tale. Disney fairy tales especially they sort of remove the meat out of a lot of the fairy tales, and then they turn every scene into a comedy bit. Like, there's no exposition in this movie. There's comedy bits where you learn shit.
Okay.
like, you want to know what's going on with the parents, right? You're going like, so what's going on with the parents? In the meantime, it's been 16 years.
Yeah.
And they're all excited because in 16 years, Aurora's going to get to come home. The Prince Charming is going to marry her. And you have the two fathers talking about that. And what they're conveying is that the kingdom is getting ready for that marriage. But the way it's conveyed is these two guys talking and getting increasingly drunk until they're just idiots and blundering morons who start fights and then hug again and then fights again over nothing.
Yeah.
And it's really funny, it's really charming. You have the jester who gets drunk in the background and all of that. And it lasts like 7 minutes or something.
I know.
But it's charming and I like it. It's a nice comedy bit. But what it does in reality, its sole purpose is to convey to you that the kingdom is getting ready for the big wedding.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like you're getting a nice comedy bit.
I didn't even see it that way. It's interesting.
And they do that throughout, Prince Charming meets Aurora. They have a nice little singing and dancing number and a nice seduction number. Like, everything gets turned into a little mini skit.
Wow. I'm going to probably have to rewatch that and check those out. I just, I didn't notice that. Okay.
The fairies could have used magic and then the crow would have seen it. But no. They use magic, and then it turns into a fight of blue versus pink, and then the crow finds it. Because everything is its own little mini Saturday Night Live skit, a comedy bit. And
okay.
I like that a lot. I find that it makes the movie so entertaining, because there's always something going on. There's always a mini story within the grander story going on.
Well, there are some parts that aren't really skits, when she gets cursed. There's not really that much humor in there, but
no, absolutely not. And because it's a big plot point.
Okay.
When it's directly related to the plot, then
all right.
In fact, the final act is pretty plotty.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
But if you remove those bits, then you'd have like fucking 20 minutes of story.
That is true. Yeah, it's a pretty. I remember. I forget what it was called, but it had like mini TV that you used to pull the crank, and you saw little movies on, and that lasted like maybe 30 seconds, and you could see the whole of Snow White in like 30 seconds. So it's not a very long story to tell, honestly, when you get to the bottom of it.
Not when you got it,
Yeah.
I like as well the animation style. It's a little bit more angular than we had been used to seeing from Disney at the time. And I think the idea, since it starts with a storybook opening, is to sort of imitate those children's medieval type drawings of children's book at the time.
Yeah, I got that.
And it's done really well. I find it, because it I'm thinking of a more modern movie like Hercules that tried to do the angular stuff as well, and it's too far into the angular thing that I'm like, okay, none of you really look like real people to me, and it's bugging me a little bit.
It's too far, and I don't know, it's too fluid, I think, for Hercules. There's a little herc and jerk in Sleeping Beauty that you can actually, it's like, no, it's really like images from a book moving that you can actually see. Hercules was just way too, it was too, I don't know, crazy and zany to be like, no, okay, these are not the kinds of, paintings you would see on a vase or something from,
That's interesting.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah, so you're saying that because the way they approach it is a bit more grounded, it doesn't feel as off-putting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment, and you're probably right about that. And I do appreciate that it feels more real, that you can believe in these characters, even though there's a little bit of a stylized element into it.
Okay.
Again, I already talked about the quality of the movement, but Aurora's dancing scene is so well done in terms of, like, she moves like a 16-year-old. It's true.
Yeah.
She doesn't move like a dancer or a Broadway person. Or maybe she does move like a Broadway person imitating a 16-year-old, and they just copied a really good actress,
I guess, yeah.
But, the quality of the animation in terms of conveying the character, not just the movement of a person, but the movement of Aurora specifically, I think is really, really great stuff.
Yeah. You can see, like, Maleficent, she's really, like, showboaty, and she has all those grand gestures, and, she knows she's on top, and, the fairies are a little more, like, held back a little bit. They're a little, gun-shy sometimes, so you can totally see that in the way it's animated. It's very well. It's very clear, that the animation goes well with the character. It's not just one animation style fits all.
Yeah. I mean, like, even the three witches are different from another. Flora has her shoulder backs, is clearly more authoritative. the green one, whose name I completely forget, is in a clearly passive stance at all times, but a comfortable one.
Yeah.
And then Merryweather, the blue one, is just like, she's always moving because she's always restless and it's like, oh damn it, why won't anybody listen to me? Like her movement is always like you look at the movie like she's never not moving.
Yeah, that's true. If I haven't, small nitpick about the movie, again, I'm sorry to bring logic into this movie.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how this curse was supposed to work,
How do you mean?
Well, the first gift of beauty and singing, they probably just happened, I'm pretty sure they didn't give, facials and singing lessons to Aurora. I think they just blessed her and it just happened.
Magically, yeah.
Yeah. However, the curse, for some reason, Maleficent needs to have her, force her to go to the loom and, not the loom, but the spindle and prick her finger. She basically has to make... It's not like a curse that automatically happens, Sometimes in the movie, it's all like, where is she? It won't work if I don't know where she is. I was like, well, why do you have to worry? It's a curse. It should happen automatically, shouldn't it? I don't quite get how that works, as opposed to the gifts of the fairy godmothers, which just basically happen without, any help.
The way I would explain it is she's setting forth a destiny, right? Like that's what Maleficent and Merryweather are both doing. They're setting up a destiny, one that will put her in peril and the other that will save her life.
Yeah.
And but when you have a destiny, doesn't mean that you can be passive in your life. You still have to act in your life, and that's how I see it. Where Maleficent, by setting this curse, is confident she's going to make that happen, but she still has to work at it.
Okay. It's not how curses work, but sure.
Well, she's setting up a destiny, and I think
All right.
in destiny, that because you have a destiny doesn't mean you get to be passive about it. But obviously, I mean, this is my explanation for it. I think the more likely explanation for it is the writers went like, whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what I mean?
Like the same thing is they know it's going to happen on her 16th birthday, so they bring her out of hiding on her 16th birthday. It's like, well, can you wait one extra day? Come on, guys.
Well, it's the same thing with the magic, right?
Yeah.
Their impatience is a little bit like, come on, you've done it for 16 years almost. 2 more days, guys. 2 more days.
I know.
Although that makes it funny.
Yeah.
I don't point that out as a reproach, but
Yeah. Say, if it was just going to happen on 16th birthday, just, you should be living with her fire the whole time. Not really bother with it. But it's okay. Those are the tiny nitpicks when you start thinking about the story too much. Like I said, because I didn't approach the movie the proper way at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I was really expecting it to be about Sleeping Beauty and Prince Charming, because the title of the movie is Sleeping Beauty.
Wow.
You don't expect a movie called Rocky to be about Apollo Creed, It's going to be about Rocky. But, But I mean the protagonist.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I was like, I was kind of getting bored waiting for them, and it's just my mind starts wandering. I was like, this makes no sense. But then when again I saw it's about the fairies, it became pretty cool, and I really started liking it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you just to go back to it, you would totally recommend it.
Completely, 100%.
Yeah. I'll confess to you, it's my favorite of the early Disney movies is Sleeping Beauty.
Okay.
As much as I appreciate the value of the animation that's going on in the other ones, I often fall asleep watching them.
Really?
Yeah. Whereas this one, I find there's always something entertaining going on. These are characters I can actually get behind, which I couldn't with Snow White for obvious reasons, or even Cinderella, really.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out to people this is a product of its time. This is still a movie where women are there to wait for men to happen. And,
really?
And then I'm just like, I want to meet a man, and I meet a man, and I'm
Okay.
getting married, and that's when I gain happiness. There's a legitimate concern about maybe some people not wanting to show it to their kids at too young an age where they might construct values out of it. My argument would be to, no, let them see it, but make sure to discuss what it is that they're seeing afterwards. A movie for me is always a good opportunity for a discussion. That's why I do these podcasts after all.
Yeah.
And I think a discussion with your kids about the themes of this movie in terms of its feminist look, because it's such an old movie, is still being distributed today.
Yeah.
I think it's warranted. That's all I'm saying.
I still think it's compared to the other princess movie, it's still very good, because like I mentioned earlier, it's the fairies that pretty much do get
That's
everything happening.
That is true.
They actually have to go and save Prince Charming, and he only escapes because of them.
Yeah.
So he's basically just the tool to get to Cinderella. He's kind of like the key to open the door, but I'm pretty sure they didn't need the prince to save Cinderella. He would have just rotted in jail over there, and they would have saved Cinderella by themselves. So.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's true.
And also, as I read on the internet, it passed the Bechdel or whatever
The Bechdel test. Yeah.
It easily passes the Bechdel test.
Oh,
so,
yeah. No, but
according
but
to
so does Twilight.
Yes.
So, like, let's just keep...
According to the internet, it can't be sexist, okay? Because it passes the Bechdel test.
Twilight also passes the Bechdel test. Okay, the Bechdel test. For those of you who don't know, let's talk about the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
There's this character in a comic book. She says, like, I don't watch movies anymore. It's like, why not? It's like, because for me to watch a movie, it has to pass the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test is there has to be more than one female character.
Okay.
Talking.
They have to have a conversation.
They have to have a conversation. And number 3, that's not about men.
Yeah.
And then she says, like, and that's why I haven't seen a movie since 1981 or something.
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
the last movie she saw was Aliens 2, because Ripley and the little girl are talking about, the alien queen, who is also a girl, so they're not talking about men, which is, that's kind of funny.
That's hilarious. So that's the Bechdel test. But like, I feel a lot of people are misinterpreting how to use the Bechdel test.
They really are.
Because just because you pass the Bechdel test doesn't mean that you're not a sexist movie. The standards are really, really low.
Yeah.
Second, just because you fail the Bechdel test, a lot of Christopher Nolan movies fail the Bechdel test. Doesn't mean that you're a sexist movie. It means that you're part of a disturbing majority of movies that underwrite female characters.
Yeah.
And it's about trend. These incredibly low standards for a female character being written isn't being met by a quota of about 60 to 70%.
Okay.
That's disturbingly sad, you know? And that's the idea. It's to look at whether a movie passes the Bechdel test. It says nothing about the individual movie.
Yeah.
But when you look at the overall trend is when you see, oh, maybe we have a problem.
But to be fair, it is getting better, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but there are like 2 old drunk guys that are talking about a girl in Sleeping Beauty. Is there a name for that kind of test? Or,
No, but most movies would pass the... Actually, it's funny because I don't think Sleeping Beauty would pass the reverse Bechdel test, if you will. I don't think there are 2 men who don't talk about Aurora because everybody's always talking about Aurora.
Interesting.
All right, so let's talk about Maleficent.
Okay.
Are you looking forward to that?
Not really.
No?
No. I'm sure they're going to mess it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Sleeping Beauty was really about the fairy godmothers. If you're basically doing a movie about Maleficent and her plotting against Sleeping Beauty, you're kind of missing the other side of the flip of the coin. I don't know if she's going to be opposed, she's going to be in opposition to the fairies, or she's really just, who cares about those damn fairies? I'm really aiming at, Sleeping Beauty. And, just, I don't know where this movie's going to go. It is really, what I'm saying. So I can't really look forward to something that I'm just so confused about. Where's the direction here?
This is where you and I differ. Because I like it when I don't know what they're going to do.
Okay.
When they have a topic, it's like, oh, you think there's a movie there. I didn't know there was a movie there. How interesting. Show me your movie. Because then that guarantees me that I'll be surprised. Sometimes pleasantly, sometimes not. But it'll be something different. Like,
that's where I was going. Yeah.
You complain about superhero fatigue because it's always the same thing.
Yeah.
When you see a project that you go like, where are they going with that? It's a guarantee it's going to be something different.
Yes, but I mean, a superhero fatigue. I'm tired because they always do the same thing with superheroes. I'm not tired of superheroes, but just show me something new and different.
Yeah, but new and different means you don't know where it's going.
I guess. Yeah.
It's sort of what I'm trying to communicate.
I'm also don't like wasting 2 hours of my time watching a bad movie. Is the thing.
I'm looking forward to it because of that factor. Because I'm like, that's an interesting idea. I don't know where you're going. It's possible that they're going to go with what I sort of mentioned in passing, that Maleficent is just going like, look, there's going to be evil in your life. What are you doing?
Okay.
And she's just like, I'm representing evil. Like, she's in sort of like that almost objective manner of like, there's evil in the world, you can't run away from it, I'm gonna have to show it to you. You know what I mean?
Alright.
And if they're going from that angle, it should be an interesting idea. It'll be the idea of trying to get the audience to be sympathetic towards the idea of evil. And that That's a challenge, certainly, and that could be an interesting experiment.
I hope doesn't get them too sympathetic with her because she ended up stabbed at the end. Just
Then it's a tragedy. I don't see the problem with that.
Okay, I guess
Tragedies are legitimate stories.
Yes.
Again, if we're going to complain about always getting the same thing, and I tend to agree with your argument that we are getting too much of the same thing these days. Well, we can't go like doesn't have a happy ending not watching it, because then you're sort of limiting again the different things that you get to see.
Okay.
Angelina Jolie as Maleficent, I think, is an interesting choice.
I'm not too fond of her, so it's always a strike on the movie.
Yeah.
She can do some good stuff, but I think that they've been focusing too much recently on like she's hot and not like she can act. So I'm not.
I think she can act. I think
she can act,
yeah.
but they haven't really, I don't know.
I think she does particularly well in roles that are a bit alienating.
Okay.
Like she's sort of an elusive presence, Angelina Jolie. That's sort of her nature. Like that's sort of the vibe she gives off. She feels inaccessible.
Okay.
And I think that's a good choice for Maleficent. That sort of era of like, first of all, it comes off a little bit disdainful towards the rest of the world, which is very much a part of Maleficent.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like is there a depth somewhere in that cold heart of Angelina Jolie's? It's sort of like the sense you get when you watch her performance. By the way, the answer in real life is yes. Have you seen the number of poor children she helps with Brad Pitt on a daily basis? That woman has a huge heart.
Yeah, she has.
But in her performance, you're always like wondering, like that woman's made of ice. What's in there? And I think that's a quality that's great for a movie that's going like, let's take one of those iconic villains we were used to dismissing as a villain and see if there's something in there.
Okay. Maybe it's unfair to me to compare them to the more recent, Disney villains who like have a lot more screen time and hence a lot more development. So I guess it is though. You know pretty much all you need to know about them. So why make a movie about them? So I just answered my own question. All right, thank you.
All right.
You were very useful there.
All right. For more, Nick talks to himself. Next week, we are going to talk about Teen Wolf. In the meantime, if you want to write to us, share with us your anticipation for Maleficent or your love for Disney princesses in general. Oh, I know there's a lot of you who want to do that. You can write us at mail@idiomanic.com or post a comment at idiomanic.com. Just click on the episode name. We're also on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. We're also on iTunes. If you could write us an iTunes review, we would be very appreciative. It allows us to get the support to continue generating content for you guys. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to put a curse on Nick and have him constantly switch from blue to pink.
Now you're too lazy to follow up on that curse. I'll be fine.
And then use that review to gauge your expectations about the latest entry in the franchise. In this case, it's a little bit special because what we have here is Maleficent is sort of a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but from the bad guy's point of view.
Interesting.
It's sort of like what Wicked did for The Wizard of Oz, and they did that for Snow White as well a couple of times.
Okay.
So we figure, okay, well, the original, in that case, is Sleeping Beauty, definitely.
Of course.
But it's not like it's a sequel or a straight remake, So it's a little bit of a different creature.
It is.
So Sleeping Beauty, did you like it? Just like right off the bat so people know where...
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
Hey everybody, Maleficent is coming to theaters this Friday, and you know what that means?
We're probably going to be sleeping through this podcast.
No, it means we're going to stammer through it.
Shut up.
And this actually means another episode of Don't F With The Original.
With Nicholas, I'm the video correspondent for Idiomatic.
And I'm the editor-in-chief of Idiomatic.com and movie critic. For those of you who don't know, Don't F With The Original is whenever there's a movie that's coming out that's part of a franchise, we review them one that started it all.
For that, the third fairy gunner says, you know what, my gift is that she's not going to die, she's just going to fall asleep until her true love kisses her. And so, to try and counteract that curse, the fairy gunners have an idea of just go hide her and raise her in the woods until she's past 16, and then she'll be safe.
And then the fairy tale story goes exactly as you expect.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you said you liked it. What do you?
I liked it because I was actually expecting it to be just the story about the prince and Sleeping Beauty, and I was really like 20 minutes in, I was like, I'm tired of those fairy godmothers. Why can't we just focus on the two main characters? But then you realize the story is actually about the fairy godmothers, and all they're
coming from.
Oh yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. I think that's a great movie. I really do think it's a great movie. All right. So synopsis.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So Sleeping Beauty, when she's born, when the little girl born, Aurora, the kingdom has a great celebration, and the three fairy godmothers come in to give her gifts. One gives her a gift of beauty, the other one a gift of song, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Maleficent shows up. She's really angry because she was not invited to the shindig. So she curses the baby, and she says when she on her 16th birthday, she's going to prick herself on a spindle and die. So to combat their actions they're doing to try and prevent Sleeping Beauty from, falling into that curse. And you start realizing that, that's actually pretty interesting. It's just, it's called Sleeping Beauty, and the movie's not even about her. The protagonists are the fairy godmothers, which I really liked.
That's a really very insightful comment. I think that's really a great observation. Something that I hadn't really noticed until you mentioned it, but it's true. Whose actions motivate the plot? The little fairies.
Yeah.
Who makes the horrible mistake that allows Maleficent to get the edge? The witches.
Yeah.
And at the end, who solves the